Hey everyone, welcome to week 70, day 4. This is Thursday. This is our 4th day on our Tackle It week. This is the week where we finally said, you know what, I'm going to paint expressive hands. That's what we've been doing. Let's see how we do today.
Okay, let's get started. This is day 4. This is our 4th day on our Tackle It week. And, a lot of people have been posting messages saying that I should be tackling my urban landscape fear. And I'll tell you this, there will be a day where I gather enough courage and I pick myself up and I say, you know what? It's going to be buildings all week. This week wasn't that week, but I promise you, this is a promise. I'm still owing you bike week because I know that I said that I was going to do a week where I concentrated on painting bicycles, because I think that's one of the most weird shapes ever. I don't know why. I have that irrational belief ingrained in my brain for some reason. And buildings. I was thinking about this. I don't know if Antonio Lopez is to blame for this, because I have never seen anyone do a better job at buildings, at urban landscapes, than Antonio Lopez. And he is so beyond my grasp. He is so absolutely beyond my reach that it's one of those things that why even try? But I know that I can answer this question to myself. You try because you want to find out how you would do it. I am perfectly aware that I am never going to be able to compete with what Antonio Lopez did. I mean, he's one of the greatest painters in painting history, I would say. I really do put him like in the upper echelon of painting. That's why it's super hard for me to try and rationalize that he's still alive, that we are living amongst one of the best painters ever. I do think that he fits beautifully in the Spanish tradition of painting. I think he is that good of a painter. So that's why I don't paint buildings. That's my perfectly legitimate excuse. In my mind, that's perfectly valid. It just makes sense. Why do it if Antonio Lopez did it 1,000 million times better? Of course, I'm joking. Like I said, the reason for doing it would be to embark in this process of saying, I want to see how I would figure it out. I want to see how I would paint buildings. I'm obviously not going to be able to produce the paintings of somebody who is just dramatically drawn to painting buildings, moved by architecture and moved by the urban landscape, because that's not my case. I enjoy spaces when inhabited by human beings, or when they have hints of being inhabited by human beings, or they have traces of the life of a human being there. I know that you could argue that an urban landscape is in itself a trace of our humanity. So my argument just falls apart constantly. The more I speak, the more I realize it's just an excuse. It's just a dumb excuse because I know that painting buildings is tough for me. I know that it would require a ton of patience and a lot of learning. And I am no different than any of you guys out there that when I don't know about something, I'm scared of it. I'm scared. And I also know how tough it is and how hard, we all need to work when we have to learn something. But I will do it. Before year 2 comes to an end, I promise you I will do this. For now, it's hands. And I know that it seems like I don't have trouble with hands anymore. Maybe I have gotten to a place where I just see in hands possibilities to express myself. I love to push gesture. I see them now as a vehicle for gesture, as a vehicle for distortion. And I love that, but I wasn't always there. When I was telling you guys about the painter that I was 15 years ago, I didn't have that confidence. And it's not a matter of age, because maybe some people out there are saying, well, that was you 15 years ago. You're still young. Oh, I've met young painters that are completely fearless. In my case, it was just a problem of attitude. I had this mental block that I was believing, the same one that I have right now, as an older painter. The fact that I'm older doesn't make it easier for me to explain to myself why I should just step outside and paint buildings for a month and see that I'm going to get better, because that's going to be the inevitable result. why do I know this? It's not because I trust so much that I can get better at things if I work on them. No, it's because I know that when anyone works consciously on something, they get better. I've seen it as a teacher. I saw it as a teacher in a semester. The results I would see with young artists, particularly in life drawing class, oh my God, it was like they were another person. And that was 4 months. It was such a small space of time. And I always told them, because essentially for a lot of them, this was their first life drawing class. I always told them, begged them even, to keep their first drawing, because it was so wonderful to see that first drawing when compared to the last drawing they did on the semester. 2 completely different universes. And if they were willing to work hard, if they were willing to pay attention every class and just put in the work, drawing and painting, they are very, very generous with us. They will answer back. The thing is, we have to nurture and take care of this ability, because it can go away. If we're not mindful, if we're not respectful, those things can, I'm not going to say they can disappear, but they go away. If we don't pay attention to them, if we're not constantly checking ourselves, if we don't understand that our obligation or responsibility is to be willing to learn every single day, then it's not going to be surprising if our ability starts diminishing. I know I have to go outside and tackle bricks and windows in perspective. I know that they will come, so it will happen before year 2 ends. But as I was saying, hands for me were tough. They're still tough today. The only thing that has changed is that I have confidence in what I can say with them. Before, like I said, I think on the first day, I would just evade that responsibility as much as I could. I could make up as many excuses as you can imagine, like I'm doing today for the urban landscape thing. What has happened is that nowadays I'm excited. Whenever I see the opportunity to paint a pair of hands, I just attack it. I'm just like champing at the bit. I can really kick ass with this moment of the painting. I'm going to really make this instance shine. And you know what has changed and has been really, really interesting? I think you guys have heard me say this before, but one of the hands, if not the hands that have had the biggest impact on me in my career, I would say. This sounds hyperbolic, but I've re-examined those lithographs time and time again, with the passing of the years. And I always go back to them and say, yeah, those are the best hands I've ever seen. Those are the coolest drawn hands I've ever seen. And of course, I'm talking about the Jerome Witkin lithographs. They are exceptional. They are out of this world. I really do believe that those are the best drawn hands I've ever seen. I'm sure we could get into an argument, and I'm sure that people would be able to show me dozens of hands and have very valid reasons for why those hands are far more important, far more relevant, or far more moving to them. I'm sure. And honestly, it would be a pointless discussion, because all I'm saying is that in terms of my sensibility, when I look at those hands, I'm like, that is everything I would want in a hand. Everything. Everything. It's almost annoying how strongly I believe that that is my aim, that would be like the pot at the end of the rainbow. That's my goal when I try to paint expressive hands. It's like right there, I can visualize it. And I think it's fantastic when we can have those goals readily available to us. Because, for example, I know that I can never paint a building like Antonio Lopez, but I don't really know how I would go about trying to paint a building, so I don't know what to expect in my process. It would be a surprise to understand the place I would reach when I get to a building that I understand expresses who I am. I don't know what that looks like. I really can't even imagine what that looks like. And I hate to say it, but Jerome Witkin's hands, that's where I want to be. There's so much kinship between, the sensibility that is displayed in those drawings, the character of those drawings, and the qualities that I wish I had with my work, that I can honestly say that that's where I want to go. That's the place I want my hands to be at. It poses a question, because do we want that? Because perhaps it's healthier to not know it. Like in the case of my buildings, I have no idea what that would look like. And maybe that's quote unquote better in terms of being able to make our own discoveries when we walk down our own path. Because I've said this before, what we don't want to do is walk down the path that somebody else has already traveled. If we can see the results, what's the point? They were the results of their path. So it doesn't quite make sense to say, I want to do that. I want to be that artist. And I know it. Rationally, I know that. I'm even like scolding myself for saying that. I'm like telling myself, dude, you know you shouldn't think that. But I'm also quite human. And I can't deny a very deep connection that I have with a work of art. So yeah, when I see those hands, I see the potential that lies within my own work. That is the hope that I have for myself. But I'll tell you this, and this makes it super cool. This has been happening. It has been brewing very slowly for the past couple of years, but I've always liked Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby, if you guys don't know it, is one of the most famous comic book artists ever. Him, together with Stan Lee, they created just about every single character that's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now that everyone loves. And Jack Kirby was responsible for the New Gods in DC, so it was not all Marvel. He is an absolute legend in comic books. And while he had the ability, I'm not going to say he was a super traditional draftsman from the beginning, but he had this ability to be far more disciplined, let's call it. So some of his first work was what you would expect a draftsperson to draw like in terms of comic books. But with the passing of the years, he started to become far more gestural, far more dynamic, a ton of distortion, beautifully kinetic drawings. From then on, he just literally changed comic books. The future of comic books that were action-oriented was created right there. So when I was younger, I remember one of the first books I got was How to Draw Comic Books the Marvel Way, and I loved it. And I still have that dream, to be honest. I don't think I'd be good at telling a story, but I've always had this dream of at least doing a comic book cover. Maybe that's why I do so much Hellboy adjacent stuff. I'm still waiting for my phone to ring, and it's Mike telling me, hey, do you want to do a variant cover for this Hellboy short story thing? And I would try to play it cool, but inside I'd be dying. If I finally do a comic book cover in my 70s, I'll feel happy. But as I was saying, I remember loving that book. I remember copying a ton of that book. I remember trying to understand, all these dynamics in terms of how to pose a figure and all the choreography of shapes that would make for a very exciting panel. I loved that stuff. I loved it. But when I started my formal process of education, when I started going to life drawing class, something got lost. I think some of the love that I had for old school, comic books, of course, didn't disappear, but it just got buried underneath all this information that I was trying to collect from, life drawing and life painting classes. And I think naturalism, realism, painting from life, direct observations from life kind of got in the way. And when I was looking at Jack Kirby's drawings at that point, I was like, yeah, those are a little too simple for me. Those are heavily stylized. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for something that's far more structured, far more traditional, far more naturalist. So, there was a point in my career where I thought I kind of outgrew this. And I'm happy to say, because that was a very sad moment when I looked back, that I've been, for the past years, rediscovering Jack Kirby's work. And I think I get it now. I mean, I don't think there's anything to get. I think it's very simple. When you look at his art, it's just very simple. It's right there. It's almost like the most straightforward art that you can see in comic books, because it is just about the essence of traditional comic books. It's about energy bursting out of a panel. Every single panel makes so many sacrifices for the sake of being dynamic that it is plain and obvious to see what it is about. From the beginning, it's like a punch in the face. So it is unavoidable. But I don't know why those things were lost on me for years. Why there was a point when I was looking at those drawings and I was saying, yeah, but no. And I guess it makes sense in terms of my own development. And I've said this before, but it's the same with Whistler, where there was a point in my life where I saw Whistler's work and I thought, well, that was lazy. That's a very simple painting. That is a cop-out of a painting if I ever saw one. That was so ignorant of me. Or maybe that was so young of me. I'm not equating the two, by the way. I'm just saying that in my path, when I was younger, I was just blind to it. And maybe it's not ignorance, because I don't think I was being prejudiced. I just think that I was learning so much of the other stuff that all that information just outweighed everything else. I could put anything on that balance, and I think direct observation and naturalism, realism, anything that would be John Singer Sargent, Zorn adjacent, would have no chance to level that balance, because all my attention was put on that other side. I had no chance of being anything but blind and ignorant to those other things. And I guess time passed. That's one of the things that can't be rushed. But enough time passed where I saw Whistler's paintings again, and I think he's an absolute genius. And I don't think that's ever going to change until the day I die. And it's happened now with Jack Kirby, where I see Jack Kirby's work, and I'm like, that is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And why is this relevant? Well, if you know Jack Kirby's work, and if you close your eyes and you try to imagine Jack Kirby's work, I think that, among the pictures that you can imagine in your head, one of them has to be of this foreshortened arm with this fist coming at you, or this open hand coming at you, because that was signature Jack Kirby. And those are so funky and weird. Those foreshortened hands, or those fists, are so strange. And I remember thinking when I was quote-unquote learning how to draw from the model, how to draw from life, thinking, oh, those are so clumsy. Those are so heavy-handed, pardon the pun, that what can I learn from those? Nowadays, I look at those and I'm like, oh my God, those are so deliciously good. Those are so good. I wish I could spend, days, weeks, months just understanding how that could infect my painting, how that could affect every decision that I make in my painting, how all that energy, all that gesture, all that distortion, I could feed from it and just make my painting a lot stronger. So this is very exciting for me, because these hands can't be any more different than Jerome Witkin's hands, than the hands that I've always come back to and say, oh, those are the best hands I've ever seen. No, Jack Kirby's hands are monstrous. They're everything that Jerome Witkin's hands are not. Or maybe they do share some DNA. Maybe the expression kind of urge inside of them is the same. They're both at the same level. The results are different, but the drive to express through them is the same, is exactly the same. So I'm very, very happy that I gave myself the chance to rediscover Jack Kirby. And I don't know why. I'm not even close to understanding how to deal with all that information and how that information can be fed into my painting. For now, it's just little droplet by little droplet. So it's going to take time. But I know that I opened the doors. My mind is welcoming to all these wonderful things that were there. And I saw them when I was 15. And I love that decades later, I can look at them again and say, welcome back. Let's go. Let's do this. So that's going to be it for today. Join us tomorrow where we finish off this week. And we try to do an overly expressive outstretched hand. I'm going to go for a distortion. I'm going to go for foreshortening. We'll see how that goes. It could be a disaster. But I think I've armed myself with enough courage throughout this week that I think we're going to kick ass. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.